Good morning. This is Michelle Love with Dynamic Change. It is so nice to see you today. I hope your day has been really lovely. It's very beautiful outside and very warm weather. And I hope everything has been going well in your life. This show is called Dynamic Change, and you are listening to KPCALP in Petaluma. And what I do with this show is my background is I'm a certified wellness coach, self-defense instructor, fitness trainer, and I have a degree in psychology. And with this show, I discuss ways we can develop more wellness within our lives, be more aware of our internal processes and emotional patterns and solutions towards working towards more happiness and wellness. So basically, if you would like more information on things that I do, you can always, and about me, you can always go to my website, which is dynamicchangewellness.com. And you can also email me through there. So my email is dcwellness88@gmail.com. So that can give you some information and ways to ask questions if there's something you would like for me to discuss and problem solve and come up with ideas on how to have more wellness and a more satisfying quality within your life. So today I'm really excited. I want to talk about when we're in life, sometimes it can be really hard to find a way to keep your heart open. And a way to keep your heart open because sometimes we've just been hurt a lot, or we've had certain traumas or bad experiences in our lives. And it can be a challenge to be willing to move forward in a way where we can still trust and still have our heart open and still be available for these good things to come through. And so I talk a lot about how we can work on, feeling safe within ourselves. My background as a self-defense instructor, I used to work in mental health. I think about these things a lot, like how can we push through to the other side and find a way to still allow things to come into our life that could be really good. Because I think one of the things that can happen is that our ability to stay open and trust that we can maybe have healed certain issues to where we're not going to be vulnerable to those same patterns, to those same qualities that we learned from. They were lessons we can learn from, but at the same time, we don't want to go through that particular experience that was unpleasant. And in looking at that, how open are we to things coming into our life? Do we create space for good things to come in? And how available are we to those fresh new experiences? Because I think life is really about learning. We all come in with certain experiences and emotional baggage, and it's very imperfect and it's very messy. But if we can learn from that and then heal it, do a lot of work around it, to really become stronger within ourselves and really realize, well, I don't want that, but now I know what I do want. We have to really articulate, what do I want? What would that look like? And then we really have to imagine how to bring that into our lives, because our emotional index within ourselves doesn't necessarily understand that new healthy pattern. You have to find a way to relate to it, because what we know within ourselves is what we broadcast out, right? It's like our puzzle piece. I like to really equate them to puzzle pieces. So if our puzzle piece has some rough edges to it and some experiences that maybe we develop some belief systems that that's all that we can acquire in life, then that really can create a block or a barrier to a new healthy pattern, right? So we have to work on it and heal it and start imagining the things that we have not learned yet that are absolutely wonderful and so satisfying in life, and they're healthier patterns, they're more happiness and feeling worthy of that. So we have to start imagining that and learning how to identify with it, so then we can pull those experiences into our lives. So there's a lot of elements that we have to work on to create the structure for these new wonderful things. And with that, I think an important topic is how we create trust, that we can be safe, that we can be receptive, that trusting that we're not going to always be doing the same pattern, which involves the same type of negative or difficult, challenging experiences. And there's a big adjustment with that. And I think the fastest way to really let go of the past and identifying with, okay, I know I'm smarter, I know in my mind I understand these new healthy patterns, I understand how to create different things in my life, but sometimes a barrier gets developed on your heart for me to really trust, really be open, really give myself over, let's say to love or something you really want in your life. Like, I really want to take this risk that I know is like a huge life change, or I want to fall in love. But there's been so many experiences that were challenging, that you had to learn from, that you had to heal from, that it can really feel very daunting or scary, right? So how do we move forward from that? So I've given this a lot of thought, and I think it really has to do with how do we trust ourselves. And all my shows, I'm really giving steps of how you can move into your own personal safety inside and develop this sense of, I know how to have healthy filters that really set standards, really high standards for what you allow in your life. What will you not settle for anymore? What do you require from people and from the experiences in your life? And what are you willing to turn your back on and step away from and say, that's not positive enough for me in my life. That doesn't feel good. What are you willing to set a boundary with? What are you willing to turn away from? What are you willing to find a new, healthier path with? And so I talk about these things a lot and give examples of how we can develop behavioral strategies. They're like emotional behavioral strategies is what I speak to a lot. And I find that a lot of times people do work on themselves, but developing the new behaviors is often the challenge, that we can get a lot of therapy, we can internalize a lot of new things, but practicing the behavior of that new step in life, that new path that has those qualities and boundaries that are going to bring you some real satisfaction and happiness and feeling safe enough to still take risks with your heart is often the challenge. So that's why in these shows that I I really break it down on how we can move forward, how we can develop really strong behaviors, develop new communication strategies and emotions strategies for yourself. So what I would like to speak to is having that heart open, because I have found that it can be a struggle sometimes in life, that when you have gone through a certain amount of experiences and your heart, you don't know if you're willing to take another risk. And what is life about? Is life about becoming stagnant? Is life about developing so many walls that your heart becomes untouchable? Is life about feeling unsafe with your heart? No, I think life is about living it fully and still finding a way to passionately move forward and experience new things that are going to make you feel like you're really living life, and really having that quality of, because life, in my opinion, should have some dynamic excitement that is healthy, and some healthy change, some healthy, well, maybe I do need to move, maybe I do need a new job, maybe I'm ready to date now, like these ideas of, it should be stimulating, it should be peaceful and safe. I think there should feel this safety, but also this zest of life, and this creativity of life, and this enrichment of life, to really feel like you're living it. You hear those stories of people where something big happens, they almost die, right? Or someone dies in their life, or something where they're like, all of a sudden they realize that they want to take advantage of really moving forward. They want to take advantage of really living their life without holding back. And I think that's really profound. And I think often we hold ourselves back and we play it safe, or we identify with what we've always done. And sometimes that's identifying with pain. That's identifying with not feeling lovable or worthy of something that's a little more risk-taking, right? Because when we identify with something that is kind of limiting or maybe even painful, there's this level of control. We almost feel, and I've talked about this in other shows, like if we are accepting a pattern that we know, maybe it's an abusive pattern, I stay in this abusive situation because I know what to expect. So there's this level of control, even though maybe you're being abused. You're like, I understand what happens in this pattern. And when I stay in this pattern, at least I feel less chaos and more in control, because I know what it is. I know how to evade this particular situation to some extent. I know how to sidestep it. I know I've interacted with it a lot. So you feel like you understand the dance of it. And when we go into new patterns that are healthy, that are foreign to us, it's scary. It's like falling in love. Your heart feels there's no net. It feels so like I'm taking this leap of faith and I feel like I'm just going to fall. So I think often we hold back in life to avoid that free fall, scary experience, and may hold ourselves back from taking a really healthy leap into something that could be so much more satisfying, so much more enriching, and have that I'm really living my life. And so I've been pondering about this lately, like how do we continue to move forward when maybe we've done a bunch of work, we've learned a lot, we've healed a lot. How do we continue to move forward? And so again, you're listening to this show is called Dynamic Change. It's a weekly show on Wednesdays at 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock. And this is on KPCA LP in Petaluma, a free range radio station and TV station. And I'm pondering, how do we continue to have our heart open in life and be willing to do new things or new relationships or new paths in our lives that might feel a little bit scary because we've developed walls for ourselves around our hearts, and we want to feel safe. And how can we still feel safe and still move forward in a new way that might be a little intimidating or feel a little scary, but might bring us so much more new, fresh energy in our lives, maybe new friendships, new love, new experiences that would make us feel like we're living life to the fullest. And so my conclusion in pondering this has been that you have to trust yourself. So the internal dialogue, I talk a lot about how can we slow down, and that's why I teach those guided meditations often in the show, is how can we slow down enough to hear our inner guidance, for one thing. How can we slow down enough to have space? Because at least in our culture, in the American culture, we run around a lot. I think there's a lot of workaholism and there's a lot of focus on succeeding within your work so you have enough money and you can do what you want to do in your life. But how much time do we focus on having that internal space? And I've noticed the more I slow down and just be quiet within myself and just have more time for rest, or if there's a particular activity that just kind of makes you feel like you can have mental quiet and maybe some physical quiet. I know a lot of people, I think they do it with gardening and finding something that just feels kind of almost a little quiet and internally meditative. And whatever that is for you, it could be reading. Even though your mind's processing when it's reading, it's a slower activity because we get so stimulated by the phone, the technology, the work, the doing. Finding something that is kind of old school, slow. Remember before technology? I'm from that generation. Do we remember? How did it feel to be slower? And finding a way to create slow allows you to feel yourself at a deeper level. So you can do it with, reading, with gardening, with taking walks, with meditation, with breathing deeply, doing Tai Chi, swimming. Swimming's a really nice way to regulate because it has this calming effect. Going to the beach, I always feel so tired in a good way after going to the beach. It's like the negative ions of the ocean and everything. It just kind of grounds your energy in your body, and it just makes you feel a little heavier within yourself and quieter in a really good way. And I feel that way also after I swim. And being in nature, so finding these activities that allow us to just relax and not be doing all the time. So when we create that slowness, there is more space for feeling safe. Because when we are constantly doing, there's this element of feeling revved up, of feeling stressed. And that's also connected to the fight or flight feelings within our body, so that system of our body is stimulated, right? We're always going. And so when we slow down, we're able to slow down within ourselves. We're able to feel more grounded. We're able to feel some space within our psyche and our emotional world and our mind to check in with ourselves and also realize that when we have thoughts, because you have to be able to recognize your internal dialogue. So you have thoughts that come in when we're maybe assessing a new situation and we're like, I'm thinking of really moving, doing this bold move. Maybe I'm going to start dating. Maybe I'm going to go find a new job. Maybe I'm going to join this new activity that I've always wanted to do, but I've kind of held back because I was nervous. I didn't know if I could do it. And you're looking at doing something that's going to be really stimulating in a good way and do this new thing in your life. But if you slow down enough, you can tune into what is my internal dialogue around that. You know, what am I thinking? Am I thinking, oh, if I decide to date, am I going to find someone good, or is it always going to be the same thing? Is it going to be what I've always done, where, for example, I love to make up my imaginary people. So today's name for your imaginary person is April. So April's a lovely lady. And April has, let's say she hasn't dated for like a really long time, like 5 years. Let's just say she was like, wow, I went through a lot of challenging situations within her romantic relationships, and she wanted to really look at that, and she did a lot of work around it, and she decided, maybe she did some therapy, maybe she looked at her personal boundaries, maybe she decided she didn't want to party anymore, and she really wanted to get into her body, and she became really big on hiking, and she really looked at the standards that she wanted to set for a potential dating situation. And she decided, okay, I want someone that doesn't party, someone that's really athletic, someone that wants to go hiking, someone that has the same kind of life goals, maybe looking at someone that is always focusing on having a focus with their career and a balance with their life. They eat well, they like to take care of their body, and so there's a balance. Maybe April realized I really needed balance, and I needed to make sure that I had a healthy lifestyle, that I wasn't going out and just kind of having a chaotic feeling. And she realized, okay, partying made me feel chaotic, so she took that out of her life. And then my imaginary person, April, was like, okay, now I'm going to make sure that I apply 60% of my energy towards working and having a focus and a goal of where I want to be within the company she works for. And then she wants to make sure she has balance with her emotional body. So she decided, okay, I'm going to have some therapy, and I'm going to devote a certain amount of time to focusing on my internal dialogue and what I feel worthy of, and really feeling good about myself, doing things that help me feel good about myself, so I'm attracting good people and have standards and feel worthy of some really good things in my life. So she decided, okay, I'm going to exercise. She started hiking a lot. She felt good about her body. She had the endorphins that were released from the exercise. And when she did the hiking, it calmed her mind, and it created space within her life to really have some relaxation within herself. And so maybe April realized that she worked a lot, and when she started to really slow down, she realized that she was in fight or flight quite a bit. So a lot of, heightened continuous stress in life, you are like tapping into your adrenals, that sit on top of your kidneys, one part of that system in your body of those organs where you're overstimulated, where you're stressed, where you're running off of adrenaline. And what this does is adrenaline doesn't allow you to have a healthy level of energy in your body, of feeling, it can mess with your thyroid, and it messes with the ability to just have calm. It's like you're always activated, you're always stressed, you're always stimulated. And this is really bad for our health. And we don't learn how to regulate in a way where our adrenaline system is made for, okay, I got to run out of the way of this car that almost hit me on the street kind of thing. Like occasional situations that come up in life where we all of a sudden need a oomph for safety. Stress and adrenaline and fight or flight is for literally when I need to fight because, oh, there's, someone just tried to hit me and I need to deflect that, or someone, there was a dangerous situation, and that's what that fight or flight impulse is designed for. It's not for like living in high level stress all the time. And life can be high level stress all the time, right? Sometimes between the world and life and high expectations with, trying to make enough money, it can be really challenging to create enough space to feel slow. So my imaginary person, April, has noticed that she's in fight or flight often, and that she really needed to learn how to have calm within her life, no matter how challenging the level of expectations she had to kind of live by in order to pay the bills and everything. Like, she still had to assess, what is my quality of life? So with that, she became, she made these adjustments in her life. She started hiking. She had a focus in her life where 60% of the focus was for work, and also being able to leave work at work, and realized she didn't want to party and run around and have that level of chaos anymore, or have relationships that felt chaotic. So she stopped a lot of things in her life. So my imaginary person, April, was really looking at her pattern of her life, and she slowed down. And when she slowed down, she did notice that her internal dialogue had a certain level of fear. And this certain level of fear is now coming up where she's like, okay, I'm gonna consider dating. And she hasn't dated for 5 years. And noticing that, let's say she went on a dating app. So my imaginary person, April, decides to join a dating app and slowly work towards dating. And as she's looking through the app, she notices that when she considers speaking to someone or liking them or reaching out to them, that fear came up for her of, well, what if they're like this person I dealt with in the past? And that was really unhealthy. It felt chaotic. It was very stressful, or maybe it had some really dysfunctional, kind of dangerous qualities to it. Like, what do you do with that? And so when we have that internal dialogue, sometimes we got to question the dialogue. Like, maybe April has actually healed that particular chaotic, kind of dangerous, or really unhealthy pattern where she felt unsafe. Maybe she's actually healed it. And so it's good to move slow enough to where you have space to be able to listen to what comes up at times. So April, these old internal dialogue, this internal chatter may come up where she can look at that and say, wow, okay, I have some fear. My heart, I've created these walls where I actually, maybe she was a very trusting person most of her life and she went through some really challenging things, and maybe the heart got a little fearful and she had to protect herself, which was healthy to protect herself and develop some behaviors and boundaries for herself, and to learn how to not be too trusting or to not trust the wrong people. And that was very, very healthy. But then how do you move past that, right? So April noticed that these particular walls had been developed around her heart where all of a sudden it felt scary to trust again. And so when she noticed this dialogue coming up, and her heart was like, what if they are hurtful? But what if they would cheat on me? Maybe they would lie, or maybe they, have some really unhealthy lifestyles. And she notices fear come up. So fear, we don't want to be run by fear, right? So that's also like fight or flight, and that adrenaline and all that stuff. It's also a fear-based stimuli, right? And we're not meant to live life fearful. We're meant to find a way to adapt and create boundaries and healthy structures in our lives so we can feel safe, so we feel like we can really enjoy our lives, that we can know when, to not feel held back, and sometimes we need a bold move that is like showing that we are really living our lives to the fullest. And how are we going to be able to know when that is a moment that we should trust and take that leap? And how are we going to understand that we can do it in a safe way? So April, my imaginary person, looks at, well, I noticed I had fear come up. I was swiping through the dating app. And it's good to go slow with stuff, it's good to swipe. So you're swiping, you're like, this trigger came up. And April was like, I noticed that I felt scared for these reasons. And then April could look at those reasons of what those thoughts are, those beliefs, those triggers are, and say, okay, well, are they still applicable to me at this point in my life? Maybe if April stopped and looked at, I have actually really put standards in place where I'm just not gonna go for that person that has those elements. And I learned so much from those experiences. I really understand what it looks like. So even if, not only am I not going to easily attract someone like that, even if they had a flavor of those experiences that I don't want in my life anymore with a person, those patterns, I'm going to see it very easily, and I'm going to know what to do. I'm going to know how to stop it. I'm going to know how to back away from it and feel safe enough to trust myself. So it's about trusting yourself of, I'm going to know what to do with that and how to handle that. And because I'm so much healthier, I'm just not going to attract the same things, the same level of things. And if there's even a little bit of a residue left over that I haven't fully healed, I'll know how to handle it. In the past, April, my imaginary person, didn't know how to handle those things. So to really question our internal dialogue and process that, to allow some space for yourself to feel what comes up, those triggers, those belief patterns come up, and say, are they still true? Are they still true, or have I actually healed that? Because they're deep. Our internal dialogue is very deep. It's subconscious. It's so deep within our psyche that sometimes we really just don't notice what comes up. And creating space in our life where we move slow allows time for us to be sensitive enough and slow enough to notice those nuances in our thought and emotional patterns, to recognize what is running our choices, our behavior, our blocks, our self-defense mechanisms towards maybe holding ourselves back in moments where it would be so lovely to push through and maybe have that experience, and maybe it would have been amazing, and maybe it would have been so worthwhile and make you feel like you were actually really living your life in a very safe, a really positive, a really meaningful, a really passionate, and just mind-blowing way. And so that's why I wanted to speak to this, because I just think we get so overstimulated with life, and sometimes we have to work through certain challenges and heal it, and hopefully we've just really dedicated a lot of time to healing ourselves so we can have this amazing quality of life. But then how do we trust that amazing quality of life when we're ready? How do we know when we're ready? So looking at creating space so you can feel the internal dialogue, and then really process what comes up. So maybe April really noticed that she had fear of, okay, in that moment, April was like, she felt like, okay, I was fearful that I would attract another cruel person, another mean person, or someone that was out of control. And then April could really dive inward and say, well, I know I'm not out of control anymore. And I know that I don't even find that attractive anymore. And I know that when I'm swiping through these people, I'm going to really swipe on the people. She's going to look at the people in a new way with a new filter. It's different than when she was before. She's going to look at them, and she's going to notice, she's going to look at the quality in their eyes. You can see so much in people's eyes. And so she's going to look for that kindness. She's going to look for that strength, that kind of calm strength within somebody. Because you can see when people look out of control. You can see that quality within their eyes. And you can feel that quality with the things that they say in the dating app. So, like, really looking for someone that has a calm element to them, that feels honest and feels more mature, and really looking deeply. And when you look deeply at the eyes, when you look deeply at what they're saying, if you just slow down and breathe and just look as deeply as you can, and only really consider the ones that make you feel some quality of safeness within you, right? So maybe April's like, I feel safe with this one, and just swipe away the ones, was it swipe left, the ones you don't like? Swipe left to the ones that doesn't matter how attractive they are, right? What's really attractive is someone that feels safe and you find, attractive as well. So really swiping the ones, this external beauty only goes so far. And so really letting that go, if you can just let that go. And the ones that have a safe feeling to them, the ones that feel calm and together, make that some of the boundaries, because that's what April has developed in her life. So she has developed that for herself. So her filters of what she's okay with, now she can go with those filters and say, this is who I am now. And I feel some resonance with these couple people. And then she can look at them and say, okay, I've narrowed it down. I found maybe 3 people out of the 200. And because that's usually how it goes. There's a lot of people that, no, you should just really, really swipe, and just use it as a practice before dating. I think it could be really used as a tool, and just say, out of all those people, because there was 3 people that felt calm, that felt like they had some balance within themselves, their eyes looked kind, and there's some maturity there, right? And maybe a lot of the other people had all kinds of different qualities, and they weren't bad qualities per se, but they weren't the ones that she wants to have in her life at this point. And be really picky, and then say, okay, out of these 3, who do I find really attractive, right? Maybe out of those 3, then she can look at, okay, and I feel attracted to this one. So maybe I'll contact that one and talk with them some, and then see how I feel. So there's this constant, checking in for April, like, okay, how do I feel now? And I'm talking to them, and then see what gets triggered from that point. And April can realize, I feel safe. I feel like I could trust myself to really reach out to someone that was safe and together and calm and mature, and I still find them attractive. Like, yay, there's actually people like that out there, but we have to put it through these filters of really checking in with ourselves and really noticing what gets triggered in us, looking at that trigger and saying, you know what, I know how to judge that particular situation now, so I can let that trigger go, but I can keep moving forward towards finding something meaningful in my life, and satisfying and living life because I've done the work. Acknowledging and being able to process and be present that you've actually done the work, but keep moving forward. So again, you're listening to Michelle Love. This show is Dynamic Change. You're listening to KPCALP in Petaluma, and I'm talking about my imaginary person example of, her name is April, of how you can keep your heart open and still trust in love, trust in living life to the fullest. And how do you recognize when you've actually done so much work on yourself that the old triggers, the old habits, sometimes we can realize that we have healed and gone beyond that. And now we can actually move beyond it in our life and reach towards something really amazing and live our lives to the fullest, and not feel like we have to be guarded or live in fear, that we can actually trust ourselves and move forward and embrace something amazing, something that's going to shake up our whole world sometimes. And whether it's love, or it's like moving, or doing this new thing that was like a career move. I've always wanted to do this, and I felt scared to do it. Maybe I want to write, and like, what holds us back in life to where we don't live it to the fullest in a safe way, in a healthy way? So my imaginary person, April, has decided to start dating, and she decided that she can trust herself. She has decided that she knows how to have healthy filters and how to recognize healthy people, and that she doesn't have to sacrifice anything. And I find that really interesting too, because sometimes I feel like when we're realizing that, okay, April's like, I did a bunch of stuff in life that I really want to do it in a new way. And sometimes I think the viewpoint can come up that we can only have a certain amount of what we want. that we can't have it all. That, okay, in order for me to have someone safe, someone that, takes care of themselves, that's working on being balanced in their life and still really knows how to love, that it has, I can't, I also have to look for someone. April's like, maybe that person isn't physically attractive too. And it's only an internal attractive. And sometimes I think we come up with those ideas that we can't have everything. But I think you can really find everything. It's a matter of, you can have inner beauty and outer beauty and all the things you want once you've found it within yourself. So once you've found it within yourself, where you're taking care of your inner heart, your emotional needs, and working on balancing yourself, and you're taking care of your body, you're eating well, you're exercising. And to me, beauty, because I'm a fitness trainer, I don't believe in trying to look perfect. I think that's emotionally not the kindest thing to do to yourself. And I think if you are taking care of yourself and exercising and making attempt to get enough rest and eat well and just be balanced, if you are exercising, whatever you look like is amazing. And accepting how you look when you are really taking care of yourself and enjoying how that body looks when you do that, enjoying, how everything feels and looks when you are balanced within yourself, that makes you beautiful. That makes you attractive. That makes you confident. And it's not about looking perfect or having the perfect body or anything like that. It's about being the best you can be within yourself and appreciating that and loving that. And that's when I do fitness training with people, that's always my goal. And that's my goal with myself, is not to look exactly perfect, but to be as fit as I can within myself, and also be accepting of what that looks like and really loving what that looks like. And that confidence comes up where you feel really beautiful and attractive and vibrant within yourself, because you accept what your body does. A lot of times I think we're trying to have our body sometimes be different than what it just naturally is, right? And I think coming from a place of enjoying how your body naturally is, and then just having a lot of exercise so it's fit within what it has, is so much acceptance for the self and so much loving. And that's beautiful. And so if we work on accepting and loving ourselves and being balanced, and do the emotional work on ourselves, and putting forth this holistic piece of art that is ourselves, and really enjoying that you can have it all. You can attract someone that is also feels beautiful within themselves, and they are attractive, and and sometimes you just never know what that's going to look like, and it can be something mind-blowing. It could have been that just stunning person in the room that you would have thought, oh, they're forever out of my league, and April was like, wow, I went to this gathering, and there was this really incredibly attractive, vibrant, lovely person there, and they just had this beaming quality. And maybe that is the best match for April. And April had these beliefs that she did not match up to that. And realizing that, I think what holds us back in life is the self-doubt, is the limiting thoughts and ideas that we develop. And sometimes we need to bust through that, or often, not sometimes, often bust through that, and recognize that we're way more amazing than we realize. April is so stunning and such a lovely person, my imaginary person, April, that she can actually connect and communicate with that person, because other people are going to be able to see how amazing April is, and often she's not going to realize how other people are going to see her full on, and April may have a filter of not being able to see how amazing she is. So I think it's really important that we look at our old ideas, our old fears, and internal dialogue that can creep up on us, that may be limiting, it may be no longer true, and it was probably never true, but I'm just saying because it's fear, right? But to really scrutinize the things that hold us back, because life is meant to be lived and experienced, and we're meant to really, I believe, feel deep love, even if you just want to have that deep love for yourself. Maybe you don't feel like you need anybody, and that's valid, but to really feel that level of passion, connection, creativity in life, doing stimulating things, and being willing to take a new path, like those people that go through life and death experiences or something major, or they had cancer and they survived it or whatever. A lot of times they have that new zest for life, but we don't want to have to go through such extreme experiences to get there. I think we should be open to that. I really want to live life to the fullest all the time and not be so held back in life. So that is my message today, to boldly live your life in a way where you can feel safe, feel happy, but also feel like you're really doing something amazing. And to trust yourself, know that you can, even if you step into a situation where you're like, ooh, I'm still going into the old pattern, April could be like, but I know how to step back. Even if my toe goes into it, I realize, ooh, that didn't feel good. I can step back and I can shift and change, and trust yourself that you can always heal, you can always move forward, you can always make a better choice and continue to move forward in these ways, and that you have your back, that you can protect and take care of yourself. So I appreciate you listening today, and I'm going to tell you about one of our fantastic shows we have here at KPCALP in Petaluma. And I'm going to speak to you about this show. It's called Buff Orpington Radio Show. I love the title. And it's on Thursdays at 12 p.m. to 2 o'clock. It's a 2-hour show hosted by Buff Orpington. And so if you join Buff every Thursday at high noon for some of the best clucking music in the barnyard, each show features an eclectic mix of contemporary and vintage sounds. Remember, gentle listeners, you won't hear anyone screaming if you're not listening. Tune in or stream Thursdays at noon to catch Buff broadcasting live from the basement studios of 103.3 FM KPCALP in Petaluma, a free-range radio, TV, and radio station. So that sounds like a really entertaining show. That sounds like a very creative, and I think it would also be comical at moments show. And so today, I hope everyone has been stimulated for some deep thought with the things that I brought up about, is there anything in your life that you've always wanted to do that you've held yourself back from? And is there a way that you could create a feeling of safety and safe container for yourself to maybe work towards doing that in life? and really slow down enough to feel the internal peace that gets created from moving slower, which creates the feeling of safety. That's how you develop it, is just going slow. So just slowing down in your life and realizing that you can feel safe just by going slower. When we feel really stimulated and are constantly doing and pushing ourselves too much, if you are having a high level of stress, it's going to keep you in a fight or flight or fight system within your adrenal system, and with that type of motion in your life, and it's debilitating. It's not good for your health, and it's not good for your mental health, and it's not good for your emotional health. So when you slow down, it's going to create more balance deep within your body, within the systems of your body and your organs, your energy level. Your mind's going to feel calmer, your emotions are going to feel calmer. So making sure you have time to just decompress, go to the beach more, do deep breathing more, do stretch more, do nothing more. And I tell people, that's my joke, I tell people that a lot. I hope you do a lot of nothing, and I mean it. Like, just have some time to have ease in your life, because it is so valuable and it will balance you. And as we feel more balanced, we feel safer within ourselves. We start to notice the internal dialogue. We start to notice what needs to be attended to, because we cannot feel what's going on with ourselves if we're constantly distracted and constantly focusing on life and never ourselves. And how are we doing deep within ourselves? So, and then once you have looked at, okay, I've slowed down enough, and wow, I have all these things pop up that I'm feeling, and that's overwhelming. That's okay, because you can start strategizing on how to approach what pops up at that point. You know, whether you want to do some therapy, just start journaling all the time, and or maybe exercise. Exercise is always going to help you, always. So exercise is always a really good thing, and I recommend, as a wellness coach and fitness trainer, find something you love to do. Find something, if you have a hobby that you enjoy. I love dancing, so for me, I can just move into my dancing practice, and that makes me feel good in my body. It helps me release the endorphins, and it helps me feel fit, right? So finding something, whether it's a sport, it's an activity, riding a bike, something that makes you feel more regulated within yourself. So exercise is a good thing, journaling is a good thing, art is always helpful for processing, maybe joining a support group, but finding ways to handle what comes up to the surface, and just know that you can handle it. And as you handle it and start to self-regulate, then you can look at the quality of your life and where can I find more satisfaction? Where do I want to move forward in new ways? And it can be subtle things. It can be really subtle things that can really move the soul and really move your heart, and it's worth it. So I hope I have inspired you and encouraged some creative thought and self-reflection. Again, my name is Michelle Love, and you've been listening to Dynamic Change. You can always see all my shows on my YouTube channel. I upload all of them. It's Michelle Love with Dynamic Change and Wellness, and all the shows I've ever done are there. And you can also go to my website, dynamicchange-wellness.com, to see about the different services I provide, and how I like to support people in having more wellness. Well, I hope your day is fantastic. I appreciate you tuning in today, and I hope your day is lovely. and I hope you enjoy the weather. Thank you so much for listening to KPCA LP in Petaluma. Take care. Bye-bye now.